She accepted speaking engagements at Spelman College, Howard University, and many other colleges. In one of her addresses to the historically black all-female college, she told them to have stamina. Chisholm said,
"The road is tough if you are black and a woman."
In Congress, Chisholm questioned aspects of the American way of life, and the press was there because of her name recognition. Chisholm also attacked black politicians that sold out their constituents. She often talked to youth to help them prepare for a competitive society. In 1972, Chisholm was again the focus of national attention after announcing her candidacy for President of the United States. This announcement made her the first black woman to run for the presidency.
I stand before you today as a candidate for the Democratic nomination for the presidency of the United States of America.
She was a very, very courageous person. You know, being the first female to really aspire to be the president of the United States in her time was absolutely courageous. She was just a dynamic person.
The media watched her very closely.
And I want to be president of the United States, and she got out and campaigned for president. So young people should not be afraid to dream and not be afraid to dare.
Some felt she shouldn't run, but Chisholm stood her ground and focused on running a successful campaign. One big reason because she was a woman. Said Chisholm,
"Of my two handicaps, being female put many more obstacles in my path than being black."
As her campaign moved throughout the country, she stressed in many speeches that
"Nothing is more important than solving the domestic problems of poverty, ignorance, racism, and hunger."
She made headlines nationwide.
How do you feel this morning?
Oh, I feel wonderful. It's one of the most marvelous things that can happen in our country at this moment.
During the election, Chisholm was quoted in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper that if elected, she would reopen investigations into the assassinations of John and Robert Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other slain political leaders. She made national headlines in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper for saying she believed the Palestinians had a right to live in quality living conditions and not in the ghettos. She stood for mutual cooperation between Palestinians and Jews in Israel, according to the article.
For the first time in the history of this nation, a person of color and a woman at that is running for the highest office of this land.
As a member of the House of Representatives, she submitted bills to help working people. For example, Chisholm supported national health care and she introduced legislation in Congress. After her failed attempt to win the presidency, Chisholm was the subject of an intense federal probe into alleged illegal campaign practices. On the checklist of charges were misused funds and not keeping financial records. A newspaper reported Chisholm blasted the investigation, charging that she was the target of a White House vendetta because she was politically independent and opposed most of President Nixon's administration policies. All charges were later dropped. After losing, Chisholm returned to Congress. She kept up her commitment to people issues and addressed hunger, health care, and war. The style in which she brought out these concerns drew more national media attention. Throughout the year, Chisholm continued to be a highly sought-after public speaker. In the Congress, she stayed committed to ensuring that people's issues were not forgotten. In February of 1975, major newspapers covered her fight in Congress against Congress's vote not to increase food stamps. Chisholm said millions of Americans needed food stamps because of a slumping economy and rising unemployment. She went a step further and said more stamps may be necessary if things don't get better.
Shirley Chisholm, by standing up against some of the good old boys, even within the Democratic Party, stood up against some of the African American political leaders, said that I'm unbought and I will not be bought. She said in no uncertain terms that I'm my own person, that I'm independent, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to tell the truth.
During her career, she stood for unity of black elected officials in Congress and was active in the Congressional Black Caucus. Her political career was filled with memorable moments. In 1977, she was the first black elected official to meet with President Carter. She was voted one of the most admired women in the Good Housekeeping annual poll of the world's 10 most admired women.
I think she inspired an entire generation of women, white women, but especially black women, all women, to stand up. She injected the political system with the belief that women could be strong, viable national leaders. You know, it took Shirley Chisholm to set the tone, to encourage other women to run for Congress.